Welcome. Actually, hold on, I want to make sure. Let me get my charging cord plugged in to my phone. I just realized that we got some low battery here, but I have the cord right over here to charge everybody up. In. Easy. Welcome. Awesome. How is everybody doing? Good to be able to see everybody here on the live stream. Welcome. I am your friend Jesse. Or actually, my phone is not charging. I need to get this phone charged. Hold on. Get this charger going. Hello, Ashley. Hello, everybody. I should have had the thing charged and plugged in and everything like that before I launched the live streams, but see if that's working for us. Why is it so hard to charge a phone? That is plugged in. Okay, there we go. I was like, the thing is plugged in. Anyway, great first minute of the live stream. It's great to be able to see everybody here. I just want to jump on a quick live because our EU warehouse is finally open. I know that a lot of people have been waiting for a long time on that. And also our green tea pre-orders have started as of today. So if you're interested in getting this year's spring green tea crop, that is available on both the US and the EU websites. If you are from the EU and you order on the EU site, then it will give you the EU shipping rates and the EU prices and everything for the green tea pre-order as well. So it's great. It's finally happening. Very, very glad to be able to share with everybody the good news. And to celebrate, we're going to be drinking some of the Taiwanese Four Seasons Oolong. This and all of the Taiwanese teas are on the EU shop right now. The mainland Chinese teas, we're still working on getting their papers. You think we would have spent enough time on that, but no, they want more papers. Every time we think we have enough, they want more. So we're working on it. It's really just a great day for the tea house. I mean, we've worked on this for like over a year, and even before that, just the fact that we have like followers from all around the world that have been on the internet. I've always wanted to be able to serve everybody better that wasn't in the United States. I think when I started this whole account, I never really had any idea that we'd have a significant amount of people at all following the tea house. Not to mention people who are actually interested in getting some tea, and that it would be kind of a logistical problem of getting the tea around the world, but. It's turned out to be this amazing blessing over the last couple of years to be able to make tea with you guys, and I just want to pop on and say thank you so much for the support and for just being here and hanging out and drinking tea and being part of what I feel is like the very beginnings of an online movement of actually getting like good tea out of Asia and to the rest of the world. So very glad to be able to be here. Lots of questions over here. Kraken McBubble on YouTube says, man, I need some fresh green. I agree, man. The fresh green teas are also coming. That's the other announcement, which is going to go out on the social media and all the email stuff in the next couple of days. It's kind of getting drowned out by the EU warehouse announcement. But we also have started our green tea pre-orders this year. This is the 4th year we're doing green tea. And the way that the reason we do green tea, I'll give you guys kind of an overview of how green tea works in China in general, because it's kind of its own unique thing, because some teas like puar, the more you age them, the better they get. And so for those teas, you actually want to try to find the old tea, or at the very least, if you're buying this year's crop, you might buy some extra, you drink some of it now and you age it. For green tea, it's actually the opposite. For green tea, you want the freshest tea possible. And the tea that's picked in the early spring is the best you're going to get. And so because people know that, and because Chinese people love green tea so much, and especially the first spring crops of the green tea, what happens is they basically have bought it all by the time it gets picked. So everybody in China essentially has to pre-order their green tea with their tea guy before they can even get any tea. And if you're not pre-ordering it, you really can't get in on those first couple batches, the first couple weeks of the green tea thing. Eventually, the rush kind of subsides, but for us, we want to get in on that as well for you guys. So if you guys are wanting green tea this whole year, the spring is the time to get it. The pre-order is the way to do it. And if you pre-order the spring green tea sampler, it has 3 green teas in it, and we'll give you a surprise tea pet, which I picked last night, but I will not reveal any secrets yet, but cheers, everybody. We've got a lot of questions, by the way. If I missed your questions or if I've missed your stuff while I was doing that interview, little thing there, let me know, because I'll take some questions now. Just wanted to have my little happy rant. Kramus or OCR says, thanks, Jesse, just pre-ordered. Thank you so much. You've been a very good tea follower over the last couple of years. I'm so glad to be your tea guy. I appreciate it. Very, very fun. Great questions over here. Somebody says, hooray, catching alive. Thanks so much. Tiger Will said, did you beat Down syndrome? Thoroughly. Wrecking it right now. Ashley asks, is there any update on the UK warehouse? We are still planning on opening the UK warehouse. I'd say like June is my guess, but again, like I thought we were opening in October, so we're pushing forward the paperwork as much as we can. We had a couple issues with the UK warehouse with the registrations for, it's so stupid. It's all like tax stuff, like the way that you register to sell the taxes. If you don't register in a certain way, I have to pay all of the VAT that you guys would be paying when you buy it all at once, unless I sign up for this other thing. And so I've been trying to sign up for this other thing, but in order to do that, you have to sign up for a government like website, and the website is a mess because everybody's still struggling to figure out what's going on after Brexit. So it's slow, but it is happening, and we will get there as well. So very, very excited. Slow Cheetah says, hey Jesse, thank you for showing Going From Brewing. Saw your TikTok a few years ago and been brewing Going From ever since. That's great. I'm so glad that you guys have, you know, found your own ways of doing the Going From tea. I mean, I'm sure you find like I find it's a great part of your life, you know. Yes. So the questions over here. Slothly Dev says, can you explain what the difference is between shung and show puar? I'm not sure how the taste differs. Yes. So the tastes are very different. If you tried puar and you don't like it, or you're like, I hate it, you've only tried one of the two different types. So you may still like the other one, which I know it's complicated, but that is just the way it is. The shung and show, shung is also known as raw, show or shu is also known as cooked. So if you see shung, show, raw, cooked, it's only two. Shung is raw, show is cooked. The shung is what happens if you just let the leaves kind of age naturally. As the tea leaves are picked and then they're processed, you take the leaves, you pick them, you wither them, you knead them, you put them into like a wok and heat treat them. You take them out and knead them again. You can do that multiple times. And then if you do all of that, and then you pack the tea into cakes, that's raw puar. That's shung puar. The shung and the shung starts out when it's young with this sort of almost like a green tea, but very strong. It has a stringency, like a dry mouthfeel, like a red wine. It'll have some bitterness to it, although a lot of the people that really like shung puar like that bitterness. It's not like, ugh. It's more of like, you know, if it's a good shung, it'll kind of work its way in there. And it has a lot of other different tastes to it. The ones that we have from Sister Eye and Her Mountain have like almost like a lemony cooling thing going on there. And that's part of the reason why people like raw puar so much, is because it has so much variety in terms of its flavor. As it ages, it also gets deeper and goes from being more of like a clear green tea-like color to like a gold color when you steep it. And then if you let it go long enough, there's a YouTube video of me drinking a 60-something-year-old puar that's a raw puar, but it aged so much that it was basically black like motor oil. And so that sort of aged puar look and feel was what they were going for when they developed what they call the show, the cooking technique. And basically you do all that stuff that I told you about getting the leaves ready, but then afterwards you take all the leaves and you put them in a giant pile and you put a little bit of water on top. And what happens is that the tea in the bottom of the pile actually starts to ferment and gets very hot. And it starts to kind of like, oxidize and ferment. And when that happens, it takes it from this tea that normally would have given you sort of a yellow, a lightish greenish, maybe golden color, to this very dark black because of the intense oxidation. And that's the type of puar that tastes very earthy and very dark and like leathery. And some of the good ones have like camphor type taste to them. So those are very different, and it can get a little bit complicated to know exactly what you're getting. But we have a sample of each of them in the tea sampler, and if you get the tea oranges of mine, that's a show puar. If you buy the raw puar, the shung puar, that's the shung. And I encourage people to try both of them. So, cheers. Questions. Cosminu says, "Hi, are you planning on doing a new tea pet competition?" We actually are running kind of 3. We have the first one is our pig, who's right over here. So this was the pig tea pet winner of the tea pet competition, which we produced and made for the pig box. The rat, we actually have just picked the winner, and we're in the process of making it, although I want to confirm that we will be able to make them before I announce the winner. And then we also have a water buffalo. This is not our winner, this is Clyde, he's an OG. But we also have a water buffalo or ox competition as well that we've already run. And so I think after the 3 of these, we probably will do another 3 for upcoming Zodiacs as well. But in the meantime, those are the competitions that we ran, and we're not doing any more right now. But it's been super fun. Very, very cool. Lots of questions over here on the YouTube. I'm sorry I missed them. Questions over here. Stark says, "I have a question. Is there any tea that tastes good even when lukewarm? I don't like warm drinks at all, but I know that tea is usually drank when it's warm." I try the green teas. We have green teas on the site from this past year, and also the green tea pre-order just started today. Green tea, you already want to brew it at a lower temperature. So, there's always a range. You're going to get different kind of flavors out of it if it's colder versus hotter. But, you can be boiling that you can be steeping that already at 80 Celsius, which is like 170, I think it's like 174 Fahrenheit. You don't need to steep it that hot. It's going to take up a little bit of heat in whatever teapot or whatever you're brewing it in. And then when you pour it, it's going to lose some temperature. So by the time that 80 degrees Celsius like water from the kettle reaches your mouth, you're probably looking somewhere in 60 degrees Celsius or 140, 145 or something like that. And you could even take that down even more. You could even, if you wanted to, steep it at room temperature and leave it for an hour, or cold brew it. I think green tea is a good solution in that way. It's just to be very fresh, very sweet, very crisp. So it's really, really fun. Questions over here. We have so many great questions today. Here we go. "You don't want rolling boil on green tea. That makes it very bitter." That is from I am Tony 138, and I totally agree. A really good green tea will be okay if you put it at boiling, but there's no reason to spend money on a really great green tea and then blast it with boiling water. Even if you're not very precise with your temperature, I recommend taking the water to a boil and then adding in some cold water to kind of just chill it out. Or you can pour your boiling water into your pitcher and kind of give it a swirl. And if you swirl it around long enough, the heat will go into the pitcher and into the air. And that will also be a good way of cooling off your water for the green tea. So, cheers. Jack Higdon says, "Steeping any kind of tea and letting it cool to room temp is also okay and it still tastes great." That is true, although for the Gonfu method, as you see, a lot of the fun of this is that you're kind of making multiple small steeps. And so if you want to make one bigger pot and then leave it to cool, I think that will work. If you're looking to kind of do more of this sit down thing that I'm doing here, then it would probably be good to just have the water be a little bit less hot when you drink it. Also, if the water is too hot while it's steeping, you'll get some more bitter compounds out of the green tea that you might not want, even if the tea is cooled. But as the tea cools, the flavors actually get a little bit more intense. I had a meeting last week with a friend of my friend who is a cocktail expert, and we were thinking about maybe doing some sort of collaboration on tea cocktails or whatever. And he actually really liked the flavor of the tea better when it was cooled. He thought that it would be better for cocktails after cooling. So that's, very, very cool. Questions over here. We have lots of questions on YouTube. Let me get to some of these over here. Slothly Dev, I think I answered one of yours. Dita Mides says, should any water come above the lid in my gaiwan? I don't think so, because then you're going to burn your hands trying to get it out. I mean, my gaiwan right here, you can see here, I usually fill it up around that high. So the goal should be that you have enough room to be able to handle the gaiwan easily. So by having, even that's not a ton of room, I'm obviously pretty comfortable with handling the gaiwan at this point. But like, that's about as high as I would ever put it. And you can always go, do another steep and do, smaller amounts in each steep and not burn your hands that way. But if you put the gaiwan all the way up to the top, it's going to be difficult for you then to hold the gaiwan to actually pour out the tea. And especially for people who are newer, they might be a little bit intimidated by the process and they burn their hands. So they're like, oh, I can't do it. How do people do it? Well, they don't fill it that high. It should be pretty doable. JC08 says, what tea are we drinking today? We're drinking the Four Seasons Oolong that is in this subscription box and now also available on our EU store, which we launched today. So if you didn't see the good news, our EU store is now running. It has most of our tea equipment and all of our Taiwanese teas. We're working to get the Chinese teas onto the website, although they need some more paperwork. But it will eventually get up on there, and we're in it for the long term. This is the whole point of doing all this prep work and getting all of our tax stuff set up and our import stuff and our EU import and our Netherlands import and our UK import and all the VAT stuff and getting the labels made and doing all this work was done so that we'll be here for you guys going forward. So I really hope that this will be for me personally, it's obviously going to be a turning point for being able to serve tea to new people and in a way that's going to be more affordable, cheaper shipping, that sort of thing. But hopefully, the whole of Chinese tea and Gongfu tea is going to be able to catch on in Europe. And I actually think it'll be a little bit easier for people in Europe to adjust to it because I think they have a little bit more of a tea culture already there than in the United States, generally speaking. Very cool. Questions over here. We have, let me get another question from YouTube. I haven't gotten many of those yet. Question, can resin be aged the same way as a loose or compressed tea? That's a good question. My thinking is probably no, because it's already been brewed. It's like, that being said, like tea resin is a pretty obscure product even within the tea world in China. And so I don't know a lot about, I've never heard of an aged resin being sold. The most important thing with the resin is that you had good material when you made it. So that's why, like the resins that we work with, we're working with Sister I. The tea comes from her mountain. We know what's in it. I didn't buy it from a distributor or a third party, or it's not somebody else's brand that's been like repackaged or stuff. Like I know who's making it. And so that I think is the main thing about the resin, but I don't think it gets any better. I think it could potentially continue to dry out and maybe cause some problems of sticking to the foil if you left it too long, but I don't, even that, it's like, I'm not 100% sure. Like, honestly, we've been selling out of the resin so fast that we don't have, we've been struggling to keep them in stock, forget aging them. Cheers over here. Lots of great questions over here. Vincent says, I've been looking for a good source of smoked teas. Are you interested in stocking some? I'm looking for a new Lapsang Sochong. We had a Lapsang Sochong that's a pine smoked red tea that was on the site way back in like 2022 or something like that, which is crazy to say that's way back, but it was, I think, the second year of the tea company. And I took it off the site, not because it was bad, but we ran out of it, and I do worry sometimes about the shop getting a little bit bloated. Like if it's hard to navigate because there are too many teas, then that's a little bit of a problem. And I also knew that with the scale that we have now, I can get a little bit better tea for the same price. Or I might even want to go up a little bit to get a higher quality Lapsang, because I know that it's something that people like. So unfortunately, the smoked teas, we don't really have any, but we do have charcoal roasted oolongs. This is not the charcoal roaster one, but the same farmers are giving it to us. And those are really nice and have a little bit of a smoky, cigar-y smell to them, while also being like pretty easy drinking. Like you think, especially the 5-time roasted charcoal oolong we have, you smell that and you're like, whoa, it's gonna be crazy. And then you drink it, it's still really nice and sweet. It has that flavor in it, but it's not overwhelming. So, cheers. Brooke says, have you thought about selling your products on Amazon? I really don't want to get anywhere near them, to be honest. I'm not like, you know, I don't think that, you know, everybody needs to like boycott Amazon, but Amazon is like, there's a couple of reasons why. One, I don't want them having my data. I don't want them being like, oh, we're gonna make like, you know, whatever, Amazon basics, Gongfu tea, blah, blah, blah. And being able to look at my data and figure out exactly how much they should be making and what they should be selling it at and all that sort of stuff. Same with tea as well. Like I don't want them, like people go to the, if they went to Jesse's Tea House Amazon page, they put it in the cart, and then it'll say, you might also like these things. And I'm like, I don't think you would. Like, I think that, I just don't think you would. I don't want to be near it. Also, like, you know, there's problems with there's like labor issues with Amazon, and in general, like, I'm kind of really, I'm very frustrated as a business person with this sort of the way things have gone in the world, where we have all these things that look like markets, but they're not markets. Amazon looks like a market. It's not a market. It's a private website. They don't have to give any traffic or any, you know, respect to the individual sellers that sell on the platform. They have no obligation to do anything for anyone. You know, it's really like, it looks like a marketplace, but it's actually just like what makes Amazon the most money. And while, you know, as an individual, as a small business, you know, we don't have the ability to like fight any of that. And so I think Amazon would make sense if I didn't have you guys listening on a live stream, but I would rather spend my time on live streaming and doing tea stuff and making videos and like doing tea stuff, rather than like learning Amazon algorithms and figuring out how to do that. As crazy as the social media algorithms are, they at least are roughly correlated to making better stuff. If you roughly make better stuff, roughly you will get a better result. But Amazon, it's like, there's all sorts of like manipulation that goes on to try to get on the front page, and it's a very saturated sort of market. I'm not a huge fan of Amazon. But yeah, that's just my take on it. Thank you. Nate Dogg, hey, old school. What's up, my guy? Just pre-ordered some green tea. Thank you so much, Nate Dogg. Again, 2 announcements today. 1, the EU warehouse is open. 2, we've started our green tea pre-order. So the green tea pre-order, anybody who pre-orders a green tea, not only do you get a discount over if you had bought them separately, but also we're going to be giving you a free mystery tea pad to everybody who pre-orders. And it also is just like personally a thank you, because it's a big help to me as, again, a small business. We need to compete with the Chinese market, and in the Chinese market, all the green tea has been bought up before it's actually even been picked. So we need to be putting in our bid, basically, to be able to get some of it. And we will be able to get some of it, but I need to know how much, because, you know, not only, as I said, not only do we need to know how much we're getting at the beginning to serve you guys now, but also in general, every year, the green tea, we want to be selling that year's green tea. So if we overstock on any green tea, that's also a problem, because the next year, we wind up having to like sell it at very discounted prices, and it's not bad after a year. The green tea that's on the site is not bad at all, but the tea heads want the new tea. So, cheers over there. Thank you so much, Nate Dogg. Thank you for the gift as well. Appreciate it. And Papa Panda, appreciate it. Questions over here. We have lots of questions over here. Tea Princess, are you going to restock the Gongfu, the Sister Eye traveling case Gongfu set? Yes, that I believe is already on its way. Probably like 2 weeks, I'd say 2 to 3 weeks, we'll be able to get those in. That's great. Questions, yo, when is the shipping rate gonna go up in the US for like Give AF? I hope the shipping rates don't go up, but if I haven't heard anything the shipping rates are gonna go up, but you know, everything's just getting more expensive, man. Money, it turns out, isn't worth anything anymore. Questions over here. If you by chance is at Denali or Kilimanjaro or similar high altitude, you can boil your water and it will be perfect for your green tea. That's actually, I don't know if perfect, but like it is true that the higher up in altitude you get, the lower temperature your water will boil at because there's less air pressure. So the steam is able to evaporate at a lower temperature, which is pretty cool. And you might think that's academic, but it's actually not. Like I've been to, higher up places in Yunnan, in Dali and Lijiang. That's close to Shangri-La. That's like up into the Himalayas. I've been to Qinghai province, which is on the Tibetan plateau. In Qinghai, the water boiled at 92 Celsius instead of 100. So that's pretty significant. Like 92 is a lot. In fact, when they make their tea in Qinghai, they make puar and black tea, and they put it directly in the kettle, and they just boil it in the kettle because they want as much heat coming into it as possible. If you were at high altitude, that is something to take into effect. If you don't have a temperature control kettle and you get your water boiling, just know it's not going to be at 100. So a tea that maybe you make at 95 or whatever and it boils, that might be perfect. So figure it out. Cheers. Some Genzine says, bro, I saw you at the gym the other day. What's your split? I recently last month joined a health club here in downtown LA. So if you were in the LA Athletic Club and you saw someone that looked like me, it was probably me. That being said, I am not a big workout dude, so I don't even know what a split is. You're gonna have to tell me. Right now, I've just been trying to. My health outlook is like, I want to be able to not die because I was too unhealthy. But I don't need to be like a huge weightlifter or anything. I want to have like good stamina, be able to play sports and not wind up having bad habits that then as I get older become harder and harder to get rid of. That's my goal. So cheers. Bubble TS, any plans for the subscription box in the EU? Yes. So right now, the current box, we can't get to the EU for paperwork reasons. Obviously, you can buy it from outside of it, we can ship it in, but I can't get it through the EU customs. But the next subscription box, we have all the papers we need to get it done. The only thing I'm worried about is just the EU bureaucracy because the first shipment was sat in custom for 52 days. So I can't run a 3-month subscription if they lock my stuff away for 52 days every time I ship it. That being said, everybody has told me that that's not something I need to worry about, that we were unusually unlucky, and it was our company's first ever shipment into the EU, so they inspected everything and it was a whole blah. But yeah, the goal is going forward that both the EU and the UK warehouses, if you're a subscriber, will ship locally, cheap shipping, fast shipping, and then we're just gonna basically, when we order our tea from the tea farmers, we're gonna send it to, right now we pack it, we send it to Shenzhen, and then we have a guy in Shenzhen that receives everything, counts everything to make sure that everything was right, checks to make sure they're all sealed, and then we'll put them into 3 piles, and we'll send the main pile off to the United States, and we'll send 1 pile to the EU and 1 pile to the UK. That was the way this whole thing was supposed to work. It's turned out to be a lot harder than that, but we will get there eventually. And again, this is all that work. This is why I'm so happy. It's like all this is for the long haul. Everything's open now. We're gonna figure all this stuff out. If we have minor issues with taxes, we can sort it out now. And we'll figure out how to do it. So it'll be great. Kermit says 我整天坐在马桶上。好的，加油加油，不容易。加油，好好拉啊。Questions over here. Over here, we have a question over here. Yes, here we go. You advocate to get more people into tea, but I worry about, this is an interesting question from June Thanos Churchill. You advocate for more people getting into tea, but I worried about demand keeping up with overtaking supply, like what seems to be happening with matcha right now. This is a great question, but I'm not super worried about that, and I'll tell you why. One is because even as somebody that sells a fair bit of tea by Western standards, I can barely get in the room to talk to people that do big amounts of tea sales in China. The Chinese domestic market is so much bigger than you can imagine that the Western tea market would have to get enormous before we have to deal with that. I think the thing with matcha being overwhelmed is not actually that it's hard to make that much matcha. It's that Westerners don't drink good matcha, so the low end of matcha is getting bought up. There are only so many people that make kind of not so great matcha. But since Westerners generally drink matcha latte, matcha this, matcha in a cake, matcha in whatever, it's like a mixing ingredient. That specific use case was not a huge market. But now that it's becoming more popular in the West and people realize that very few people actually like drink matcha seriously, it's mostly like mixed into drinks. So they can basically buy the cheapest matcha they can get. And in fact, almost all of the matcha that's in the States is coming from China, not Japan. I don't know if that's like well known or not, but I know lots of Chinese tea people that have started making matcha, and they just sell matcha and like nobody asks where their matcha is coming from. And you know, it's not saying that Chinese people can't make good matcha, but it's like that lower end stuff is what we're thinking about. Similarly with tea, the stuff that's on my site in the Chinese tea scene would be kind of like mid-tier. So mid-tier is pretty safe. Like there's definitely a lot of stuff that I don't actually touch because it's too expensive or too rare or too whatever. Or it's like Chinese people really care about this plot of land within the mountain, and I'm like, I'll go 2 kilometers over and I'll get the tea from there. Which I wouldn't say it's the same, but it's very, very good. It's like 10 times cheaper, and it's definitely not 10 times worse. So I think that that's something though that I would consider a problem if like the only version of that I think could be a problem is the ancient tree tea or the wild tree tea. That stuff is kind of like there's only so much of it, and I don't think we're in that problem now. But I think it could get to the point where if the Western market really cares, like if somebody ever put it in like Whole Foods or something like that, and they were selling a lot to all the Whole Foods around the world, I think that could stress the amount of like genuine ancient tree tea that's out there. But we're certainly not there. I mean, I'll put it this way: if we ever get there, you'll have a first class seat of watching me try to deal with that problem, because I hope to be on the forefront of it if that's ever happening. Great questions over here. Wyatt Monday says, you have updates on the UK for tea? Yes, so we are still going to be opening our UK warehouse. It's probably going to take another 3 months. We're actually sending the UK shipment hopefully next week, and then it's supposed to take about 60 days to get over the ocean. They actually have to go around the Horn of Africa now because of the war in the Middle East. Not many places are using the Suez Canal. And so the result of that is that everything is about 15 days slower than it would normally be. But we just finished up all the paperwork we needed to get the UK store to where the EU store is now. We just finished that up last week. So we're now prepping that shipment, sending it out, and we're hopeful to be able to open up before the next subscription box. That's the goal. So we're working on it. In the short term, we're actually going to be air shipping some stuff, especially like tea. The equipment we can't air ship, but I'm going to be shipping over a portion of the subscription box tea by air so that we can launch. And then hopefully by the time that what we airship sells out, the ocean stuff will have arrived. And so I'm doing everything I can to try to keep that price down, because I just don't like, if we organize everything properly, there's no reason that people should be paying air shipping for tea. Like, we should be able to save money on getting that over, and it should be able to make the teas pretty competitive in the market, I think. Definitely very tasty regardless. Great questions over here. Question, Grace says, do you recommend the Tieguanyin oolong tea for beginner tea drinkers? Yeah, I think Tieguanyin's a good starter oolong. If you want to have people try oolong, Tieguanyin, also known as Iron Goddess of Mercy, or Iron Goddess, that's a great tea to start with. My one thing to be aware of though is that sometimes it depends on where you get it. There's a lot of it out there, which means there is some bad oolong, bad Iron Goddess out there, because one of the few types of oolong that people have actually heard of. And so, be aware of where you're buying it. And also just even generally, it's one of these things where like, you know, you might not want to steep it at 100 Celsius. You might want to take it down a bit because some of the iron goddesses do have a little bit of a vegetal flavor at a higher temperature, which some people like, but not everybody likes. Great questions over here. Ma Gold says Jinshuan would be my recommendation. Yeah, the Alishan milk oolong, also known as Jinshuan, is another very good option for people that are looking to get into an oolong for the first time. It's very light, very sweet, and it has it's called milk oolong because it has a milky texture. Like the mouthfeel is very rich, which is a good experience. Questions over here. And Jeanette says, I like the tea content, but what drew me in was a depth of geopolitical knowledge. So hearing about global shipping logistics is super interesting. I want to hear more. I have to hold myself back from talking about this now because, like, when I started this channel, I knew nothing about any of this. And I've had to, like, crash course figure this stuff out. And the more that I learn about it, the more fascinating it also becomes to me, because it's like, when you think about it, like trade is always the thing that wants to bring people together. Like going back to the ancient times, like the people who wanted us to live safely on the world together and figure out our issues were the people who do trade, because when there's war, all trade goes to zero. And even if there's not war, if there's tariffs, if there's trade conflict, if certain items are banned in one country and not banned in another, it's a nightmare for people that do trade. And the people who do trade are the people that give us, you know, in the modern day, you know, it's a total fantasy to imagine you can create something of the sophistication of an iPhone, for instance, with only one country or even a block of countries. Even when people say they're like, oh, I don't want to trade with that country. Well, you don't think they're just trading it to a second country who trades it to a third that trades it to you? Like the world, the cost of putting up walls is unbelievably high. And the benefit from open trade is also unbelievably high. And the more that I kind of look at the state of the world, you know, it's a weird balance because I'm not a corporatist. And as much as that I run like a company now, I try to think of myself more as an artist and a creator who has kind of had to create a company because I don't get paid for my work. You know, I'm you know, after this thing, they'll say, oh, congratulations, you entertained people for like, across all the views, 120 hours of entertainment. Well, I didn't make $1 an hour for that. I didn't make 5 cents an hour for that. The entertainment and all the content and waking up every day and making tea videos, there's no way I'm ever going to get paid for it. So I think a lot of creators and artists and people who wish to try to make the world a better place have to turn to trade and commerce as their means of doing so. And so having laws that allow people to do that freely and openly, as well as with like as little bureaucratic junk as possible, I'm kind of more and more feeling are very important to, you know, society functioning in a fair and even way. And there's definitely problems with international trade. There's definitely like, you know, questions about, you know, should we really, for carbon reasons, be buying fresh fruit in the northern hemisphere that's growing in the southern hemisphere because it's summer there and it's winter here, or whatever. I think those are really good questions. I'm not saying that I really am in embrace of the whole consumption lifestyle. And it's one of the reasons I think tea is pretty good in that sense, because a little bit of tea will get you a long way. It's pretty light. The carbon footprint is pretty low, grows on trees. And also, when the tea gets respected, people really respect the trees. It's like really cool to see how in China, which is a country of great extremes, it's both the biggest producer of clean energy and the biggest producer of carbon energy. When tea becomes valuable, to see the work that the local people and then the local governments do to protect the environment because they realize their livelihood is being built off of the health of the natural world, it's a sort of like seeing people act with that sort of like energy and fervor to protect the environment when they realize exactly how valuable it is to them, I think is a good thing. I think that, you know, if we could have more people that cared about tea and people really cared about making sure that it's grown with the proper ingredients and that we're not using horrible pesticides or crazy chemicals and that people really want the product to be good and they're willing to pay for it, that actually creates a knock-on effect where now all of this engine of the market that previously was being used to the destruction of nature is now used for its protection. And eliminating that engine is not really practical in the short term. So anyway, that's kind of a weird knock-on answer, but a lot of this is like part of the reason I'm so interested in is because it's like, you know, I've spent a lot of my career as a comedian and as a tea hobbyist and stuff, and being a importer exporter is new to me. So it's kind of fun to see how everything fits in. So very, very cool. Questions over here. Questions. Tori Randolph says, if you don't have access to a temperature control kettle, how do you steep the trees properly? Which I mean, you mean the tea properly. You don't need to be super, super precise. I think the first thing you can do is give yourself a little bit of a break. A lot of like food stuff on the internet, I watch all these cooking videos. They're like, if you salt your hamburger before it goes in the pan, like before you grill it, you might as well die. I'm like, is it that bad? Like, let people enjoy their stuff. So if the only thing you have is an electric kettle or even you're microwaving your water to boiling, steep it at boiling and see if you like it or not. I will say that if you have better quality tea, you'll get away with that a little bit better. Having your water be too hot or too cold is really the biggest problem when you have lower quality tea, because you'll get a lot of tannins and a lot of like heavy kind of acrid bitter taste out of it. And that's really obvious if you drink like a green tea bag and you put boiling water in there. It's like basically undrinkable, especially after it's sat in there for more than a couple seconds. But if you do really want to try to hit some of the temperatures, like we have temperatures on the back of the packaging, and there's info cards. If you want to try to do it well, then there's a couple things you can do. One, here, I'm going to reboil my water so I can show you. But one is just you can boil your water to boiling and then have a little bit of cool water waving around that you can add in, so you can just drop it down a bit. It might take a little bit of touch, or like, you know, how much water did you boil? What's the size of your kettle? Like, you might need to do some adjustments that I can't help you with because I don't know these things. But largely, that's one option. The other option is to cool the water right before you use it to steep. So like, for instance, pouring the water into the pitcher and then using the pitcher as a way to kind of like swirl it around, you know, let that soak up some of the heat before you then put it into the tea. And if you have a little extra water, then you can pour it out. But yeah, so that's one way you could go about it. But I don't like this idea of people like, well, I'm not gonna try good tea, or I'm not gonna get the good stuff if I don't know how to make it perfectly. Like, you know, no one makes anything perfectly. This style of tea making is called gongfu cha. Gongfu means skill. And nobody, so like, gongfu literally translates to kung fu, but the direct translation is skill. And so like, it's like any other thing that you do with a skill. Nobody's like never cooked before in their life, and they're like, I'm not even gonna buy the ingredients because I know I'm gonna mess it up. You know, like, go and cook, have some fun. You know, I moved back during the pandemic. I basically at 29, 30 years old, I had never really cooked before in my life. And then because the pandemic closed all the restaurants, and also because I knew that I wouldn't be able to go back to China, I was like, I have to learn how to cook. And so I taught myself how to cook over COVID. And most of that teaching was watching videos on YouTube and Bilibili, which is like the Chinese version of YouTube, and trying to cook every day for my family. And there were some wins, there were some losses, but you know, by doing it every day, I got better. And it's the exact same thing with making tea. It's like, if you sit down every day and have 10 to 15 minutes to yourself for tea, at the very least, it's gonna help you mentally, and you're gonna enjoy that time. But even if you don't like make the tea perfectly, you're gonna make it better and better each time. And like being so fluent, blah, 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 with all this equipment, it comes because I make tea every day, and I've done it for years and years and years. So, you know, that's the way I would do it. Questions over here. Somebody's saying I got a moderator. I need a moderator. What's going on over here? I don't know what the hell happens. I don't know what's going on over here. I'm sorry about that. We really should have a moderator, but I just hate like well, I'll put it this way. What I like about the live stream is being like, hey, I want to share something. I'm sitting, I have the time today, I'm gonna do it. I like that. I don't like this idea of like, oh, I'm gonna have to plan 7 days ahead of time when I do a live. That feels like work, you know? So that's the way to do it. Questions over here. Austin Parmatot says, do you have plans to increase the green tea variety in the EU warehouse? So the green tea pre-order is available in the EU warehouse. We're gonna 3 types of green tea this year, at least. It's possible later in the year we might add the Moganshan green tea back in because we worked with those farmers for several years in a row. But because of the new like customs crap, both, I mean, EU is always hard with customs, but in America also, as you know, it's getting worse and worse with customs and trade with China. Basically, in order to be safe, we needed more paperwork than before, and they couldn't get it because they're just small farmers. So we're in the process of helping them try to get that paperwork, but it was not ready in time for us, and unfortunately, we did have to launch the green tea pre-order before we could get those papers. And so we're hoping that we'll get them back at the very least for next year, but if not, like maybe even later in this year, we'll have an extra green tea just kind of hit the shelves. But that's gonna depend on whether we can get the papers. I feel kind of shitty saying that because like I didn't get into this whole game to deal with this paper stuff, but I think that as you can see, like this is the downside to trade wars and tariffs and all this stuff. People think it's the money, it's the time. It's the time and it's the uncertainty of knowing that the politicians are playing with business. You know, when they should be creating an environment where business can be done well. That's certainly not this. So I don't want to get super political about it, but in my mind, that isn't really even political. In my mind, it's like, you know, the, you know, I think there's a reasonable balance. I think it's reasonable if I'm going to buy tea in one country and ship it to another, there should be a system that makes sure it's safe, that makes sure that it's packaged well, that makes sure it doesn't have heavy metals. I think that's great. I think that's totally reasonable. And I think that like this is one of the reasons why we had big trade deals together with different countries. You set up the trade deals and it makes it so that regular people can actually now take part in international trade. As frustrating as it is now, 50, 60, 70 years ago, you had to be a member of like the internet, like real international elite to do any sort of business outside the country. You know, good luck trying to import something. Like you got to know the customs people because you went to university with them. It's nuts. Now there's a real system where if you buy something, you can send it over, and there should be a certain amount of paperwork that's needed. So it's coming. It's coming, man. Very cool. A couple of other questions over here. Kay Perk says, I can't believe I actually caught live. I am live. Yeah, if you have time to get your tea, get your tea. Masier Dudek says, hi, best wishes from Poland. Love the tea content. Thank you so much. Poland's in the EU. You guys can get the EU warehouse launched today if you didn't know. eu.jesse'steahouse.com, and we can ship to Poland. Awesome, very cool. Questions over here. It says, who is that? Hey, what is that over here? Hef says, good evening. What's going to be in the next subscription box? The next subscription box is a secret. I know what it is, but you guys don't. We usually reveal the new teas about a week before they go up. This time, because of the customs issues and the all this stuff, it's possible we're going to need to delay the subscription box just to give everybody a little bit of a warning, but we will communicate this way in advance if we do. We're still running the numbers and figuring out the time. You know, if the stuff makes it on time. The challenge is knowing it will be there. You know, right now I think we can make it, but we like literally have not a single day to lose, and we're gonna lose at least one day, I think. So we're working on that. But I think you guys are gonna be very interested. We're actually doing something different with this next subscription box, which I will be revealing in the future. But I don't think you guys will be dissatisfied. I think you're gonna like it. Questions over here. Can you make 350 gram cakes of the 1,000-year wild tree red tea, please? We're actually looking into that. This next trip to Sister Eyes, one of the things that I want to do is to put together a tome. I'll show you what that is. the traditional way of doing puar tea is packing it into these tongs. So this is actually 7 tea cakes that's in here. You kind of can't really see it because they're in there, but this is 7 50-gram tea cakes that are packed on top of each other. And we are going to try to put together these tongs of 50-gram and potentially the 357-gram tongs of Sister I's stuff. Probably 7 different teas in one tong for both sizes. And we will probably also have individual cakes still available. So if we, let's say if we pack the big tea cakes into tongs, we'll have some of them in the tongs, which is probably going to be like, well, I don't know how much money it's going to be. It's going to be expensive, but to get 7 357-gram cakes is an option probably, but definitely we'll have at least some in the bigger cakes just for individual purchase if we do that. And I'm really hoping we'll be able to get these tongs made because I think this would be awesome. Like that, it's going to be so great. Very, very cool. Awesome. Angelina Constantino on TikTok says, love the tea pets. They love you. Ellie says, I love you. I love you. Thank you. It's always great to, you guys are the best. Choo Choo Bear says, Masia, the resin is great. I'm glad you guys have been liking the tea resin. We are still trying to get a shipment of that through customs. I have 4,000 tins of tea resins that have been in customs detainment for 6 weeks. If you're wondering why the tea resin is still sold out, it's because we paid for air shipping to get them over fast, and they've been stuck in American customs for 6 weeks. So, whatever. I have to let this go. Questions over here. I've got a couple more questions, and then we can get going. St. Alfred Sanamor says, it does look awesome. I can't wait. 1,000 years blowing my mind next week. I'm getting ready to order some next week. I actually think the big cakes could be a good solution because as much as they're going to be expensive, they will be way cheaper per gram. Part of the reason why that tea is expensive is because I don't actually buy a lot of it because they're 50-gram cakes and they're expensive. So we don't sell a ton of it. The people who get it love it, but it's just expensive. So, but again, we can actually save people quite a bit of money if they buy a big cake of it or 7 big cakes at once. The numbers get pretty different. And you know, I'm not in it, especially like, you know, people who are the type of customer that's going to buy a big cake or 7 big cakes, like I want to make it easy for you. I don't want it to be overly expensive. Like I'd rather sell more tea and make money that way rather than like have smaller amounts and make the smaller amounts more expensive. But, we're figuring it out. It's great. Questions over here from 704103. He says, other than having a Gaiwan, a filter, and a fairness cup and such, what other items are needed for gongfu? I mean, that's pretty much it. A tea table is useful. There's also a bunch of optional things. You can have a chazla, which is a tea scoop. We sell these silver ones on the website as well as like a porcelain one. I think the porcelain one's $12. I think the pure silver one is like 200. So like there's a big, it's a thing that's nice to have. You could also have, I don't have them here on the table, but they call them the gentlemen, the other types of equipment, for example, some tongs, which can be useful for if you have like tea that's stuck in the filter, you can use the tongs to move it back. The tongs are also a way to be able to, if you wanted to touch other people's teacups without having to use your hand. So let's say this was your cup and I see there's a little bit of tea dregs at the bottom and I want to refresh that for you. I can use the tongs to dump that so that I can then pour you some fresh tea. Tongs. A puar knife is useful if you drink tea and that comes in these big cakes. You have a knife to be able to wedge it up and do that. You know, teapot. If you want a teapot to switch out with your Gaiwan, you could use that. A kettle of some sort is nice. But you know, gongfu is not like, it's not one of these things where like you miss a step and everybody's gonna arrest you because you're doing it wrong. One of the things I like about it is that everybody kind of has their own style. So it's definitely been engaging. So questions over here. Darcina Grasu, I think it says. Yeah, Rasu says, question, will Sisterized Rose Red Bee be available on the EU site even if the subscription period in the US is over? If I can get the papers, yes. If I can't get the papers, then no. And that tea is a little bit more complicated because it has both red tea and roses in it, so I need to get them both tested independently. Or rather, I need to know that they will pass before I mix them, so that after I mix them, I have a pretty good chance that that tea will pass. So I actually don't have to test them independently, but I need to know about their growing and pesticide situation before I buy them. And back when we were making that tea, we were making it for the US market. So once we passed the FDA once we passed the FDA pesticide problems, we had no issues. But the EU is, the US, I think it has 100 something pesticides that you need to test for, and in the EU it's like over 600. So it gets very complicated because a lot of the farmers in China, they just don't, name 600 pesticides. No one knows this. And then they all have their own names in Chinese. So making sure, 100% sure that nobody has been using them is very difficult. And nobody can even tell you whether they're using them, and they're not even being dishonest because it's just an unknowable thing to know. So we've been starting to look more at different farms that are specifically growing for the EU market, but then there really aren't that many of those, and some of the tea that they have it hasn't been bad, but it's kind of like not worth what they're charging for it, because what their real money is being made on the papers, which is, I think, stupid. So that's the thought about it. So questions over here on TikTok. We'll do a couple more questions to get going. Rava says, thoughts on Persian tea. I actually don't know that much about Persian tea. Tell me more about Persian tea. What should I try? I've never, I don't think I've ever tried Persian tea before. I wonder, the climate, can you grow tea in Iran itself? You probably could. They got some mountains there, right? Questions over here. Favorite Pokemon? I like Snorlax. I'm a Snorlax guy. I respect the desire to do nothing. I wish I had it. I'm too tightly wound for it, but I respect that. Questions over here. Dylan said, I don't mean to sound rude, but is the pottery sold on your site lead tested? Yes. This is, I think, one of the advantages of getting people are like, why buy on your site versus like AliExpress? I don't know whether people on AliExpress are doing all their testing. There's a form called the Certificate of Analysis, COA. And everything that we sell on the site has its own COA analysis, where you send it to not a factory, like a testing facility. And what they do is they take the item and they destroy it. They turn it into a powder, basically. And then they use, I believe, spectrometry to be able to shoot light through the item and then see where the light kind of reflects. And based off of that, they're able to tell the chemical makeup of the item. And they're able to check to see if the lead content is appropriate. And everything that we have on the site has gone through this process. We export it properly. It needs to pass checks before it leaves China. It needs to pass checks when it arrives. Everything is good. You're going to be all right. But it's not weird to ask. But it is something we actually spend a lot of time and money on. And it's just very unsexy, so I don't talk about it that much. Questions over here. Do two more questions. Do you sell a puar cake knife on the site? I really want to get one. I haven't seen one listed. I actually don't. I want to get them. I had heard that they were illegal to import, like you can't import knives. And then somebody else told me that wasn't true. So hopefully I'll figure that out on my next trip to China and get one. That would be great. Questions over here. Do one or two more questions. Wendigo Tea, am I seeing you at the World Tea Expo? I still don't know. It's like the World Tea Expo is in Las Vegas, which is only about a 4-hour drive for me. And I think it's like in a couple days. I think it's in like 3 or 4 days. But if I have the free time, I'm gonna go. But I have a lot of stuff that I'm doing right now. Like the main thing actually is I'm writing, I don't know if you guys know this, but I have a book deal. Simon & Schuster, Avid Press, has agreed to publish my memoirs on studying comedy in China by apprenticing to a master comedian and doing my and learning traditional Chinese comedy. This fan that is in the background is was given to me when I apprenticed to Master Dane. Take it down very carefully. Show you guys. This fan says over here, you know, 爱杰西徒弟. So apprentice 爱杰西 is my Chinese name. Apprentice 爱杰西拜水流年. A sort of a you know, record of apprenticeship. Over here it says, you know, Shi Ding Guangquan, my Shifu's name, my master's name, and then 2014, the 21st of June. And then my master's seal over here, as well as the xiangsheng, the traditional Chinese, I guess you call it a guild, their theme. And then the main calligraphy, which all of this, by the way, was written by my master, says, 弄月嘲风. So joke the moon and satirize the wind. So the idea being that a good comedian is able to joke about anything between the moon and the wind, which is to say, all of life. And so I apprenticed to him for 7 years before he passed away, and so I have a lot of funny stories about that time in my life that I'm going to be talking about on the in the book. And back up there, great. And I have to deliver the first draft of that book in 20 days. And we've been dealing with this EU warehouse and everything. I've tried to get 3 or 4 hours of writing in every other day for the last like 2 or 3 weeks. Most of the book is already written. I have 75,000 words already written, but it's a book. I don't want to wind up like publishing a bad book because I went to Las Vegas for a couple days, which is what I'm saying. So that's what I would say there. People are saying I'm a bit quiet on YouTube. I'm sorry about that. I don't know, is the mic covered up or something? I don't know. Thank you, Bogbody. Bogbody, by the way, is our customer service team lead. So if you guys have had great customer service experiences, you should thank Bogbody. Thank you so much. She works super hard, along with her mom, who is our second customer service person. So we basically, it's if you've sent an email to the T-Friend support email, it was Bogbody who's helping you out with this. So great. 704-103 says, do you ship to the EU? About that, I just spent a year opening up an EU warehouse, and it opened today. So if you go to eu.jessesteehouse.com, all that stuff not only ships to the EU, it's in the Netherlands through customs, ready to go to you immediately. And by the way, for all the EU people, the prices on the shop are like in the EU, they include the VAT. So the price is going to look more expensive than the American shop, but I have not increased the prices for the EU shop. It's just that the VAT is already added in. So it's going to be good. I'm very excited to be able to help open up that new market and get some good tea to people out in the EU. Very, very good. One more question over here. Choo Choo Bear says, thank you for excellent customer service. Excellent. After broke a Gaiwan, we actually have backup parts for a lot of these sets. So if you have a tea set and you buy the whole set and then you drop the Gaiwan, oh no, it's all wasted. We actually have extras. So we are working on getting that running. That will also take a little bit of time to get going in the EU, but just part of the part of why I'm trying to do things a little bit different. Very, very good. Shui SE says prices are okay. Excellent. I want the prices to be good. We have to figure out a way to survive this mad world, and I don't want to charge people more than I have to, but I also need to pay my team, and we need to pay the farmers, and I deserve to make a good living as well. If I'm able to make a tea video every day for you guys and do these live streams and all this sort of stuff, I need to make some money there too. So we can figure it out. Awesome. Very, very cool. User says, what tea would you recommend for your first order? If you're in the EU warehouse, I would recommend the Taiwanese oolong sampler. 4 different types of oolong. Actually, I recommend this one for the American one as well because we have an AT sampler, but it's out of stock right now. So if you wanted to start today, that Taiwanese oolong sampler is a good choice. It may seem small, but the Taiwanese oolong, I don't know if you were here at the beginning of the stream, but it's all rolled up into these little tiny balls and they expand quite a bit. So I filled up not anywhere close to this full gaiwan, and as you see, they've expanded to see the entire gaiwan. So the oolong sampler comes with 110 grams, so that's looking at 22. I'd say like 22. Yeah, around 22 sessions of tea. So what's going on here? The TikTok is giving me crap about needing me to move a puzzle piece into the right place in order to continue the live stream. That's weird. Anyway, very glad. Anyway, it's already been about an hour, and I have a lot of writing to do. But I just want to pop on and say thank you to everybody again and announce obviously your EU warehouse is open and our green tea pre-order has started today, same day. So if you want your spring green teas, you can go on to either the US or the EU shop. If you want, and if you're an EU customer and you've been dealing with annoying shipping and customs and all that stuff, that's over, at least for the items that we have on the shop now. We're going to be building out the full catalog as we go along. And if you're just a tea fan, thank you so much for drinking tea with me. I appreciate it. Awesome. Very, very fun. I'm going to head out. I hope you guys have a great Friday and a great weekend. And thank you so much for your support. I really do appreciate it. Awesome. Have a good one. Yeah, I'll see you around. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, everybody. Goodbye. Goodbye. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.